Drilling down in, let's take a look a little bit more detail at effectuation or the entrepreneurial spirit and how to retain that through the organization as it continues to grow beyond a simple hub and spoke process. And this is only possible if you free the organization from delegated control. Part then is how to allow the organization to take control with available means and move toward what is possible and keep it from getting bogged down into a bureaucratic approval process. To do this requires an ability to partner with others, even if they're imperfect. It's how to build up a relationship of partnerships internal to the organization as well as external possible partners. And this requires also building up some strategic opportunities. You're able to look at who knows what within the organization and who knows what outside of the organization before it may be necessary. So that you're not looking for resources, you're building up a knowledge base that you can draw upon as needed, such that the organization then is a network. Some parts of that network are operational at any given time. Other parts may be called upon when needed. Also requires the scaling of success and quickly adjusting or killing decisions as necessary. This is the experimentation process that can only be done if we allow risks to be taken if they're affordable. The key is you take the risk, you learn from it, you build upon success. If it is not successful, you learn from it, modify it, change, and keep moving. The key, though, is that that is a natural process and is built into the entrepreneurial spirit of effectuation itself. We also need to talk in more detail about purpose alignment. And this is a critical component because as you distribute decision-making across a network, that can easily get out of hand by individual parts of the organization might be saying do their own thing, or in relationship to within their small network connections. This requires some type of tension to be developed so that there is some tension through the alignment of the decision-making process and the purpose of the organization. By doing this, though, by focusing on purpose alignment, we're actually able to do something a little bit different that too often does not happen. Oftentimes, when you do a autopsy of a corporate failure, you will find that they put off till tomorrow what they should have done yesterday. The problems that are small are ignored because they're fighting other current problems. It becomes a short-term versus long-term. We talk about having to do the long-term thinking, but we're trying to do that long-term thinking within a structure and a command and control with the goals that oftentimes are short-term focused. This gets into the challenge then of how to split the long-term thinking from the short-term thinking, because you can't do just long-term thinking, you have to keep the short-term going. This gets into then how to do purpose alignment and have that internal tension. It also requires not a management of a portfolio of change, but a facilitation of a portfolio of change. A lot of times we think that when we add more and more change initiatives, which are discrete by themselves, we start looking at the conflicts and we start having to manage that. The key, though, is how to handle those conflicts within portfolio of change, of making it as a routine process without having to come in and control that portfolio and decide what's changed, what doesn't change. This again gets back to a core part of purpose alignment. Purpose alignment also has to address boundary management. If you have a dynamically organizing network of organizational entities. Boundaries aren't always static. They need to change as the needs are evolving relative to the business environment external, or as new opportunities are identified for internal improvement. Any number of things can cause the boundaries to have some conflict with a need for modification. The key then also is how to do that purposefully rather than reactionary. It also requires some network weaving. And this is where some of the current organizations do this as an ad hoc basis. So for example, Hire, they do this as a issue comes up, they form new teams. To some extent, this is done within Kotter's dual structure also, in which case when problems arrive, they then form new teams, they form new relationships. But again, these types of network weaving are often done reactively. The question comes is, why do they have to be done reactively? Could you then be looking at how things are evolving, look at the trends, look at the opportunities, and purposely do what network weaving? This is an opportunity itself. So collectively, what we see here in alignment, facilitating a portfolio of change, managing the boundaries and how to purposely network and connect parts of the organization, we see parts of that already being done within Hire's use of platforms for their network weaving and alignment. We also see it kind of in the way of Kotter's operating system that's in the shadow of the traditional hierarchy. So there are parts of this available. The key then is how to put it together purposefully for alignment so that you can do a distributed decision-making process. Looking forward then, for organizing principles, what kind of summary do we have? Going back then for structural principles, we've seen that it is possible and very efficient in many ways to have a network of small operating units, all of which are customer facing, internal facing as well as external facing. And it is possible to do alignment across the organization. Some are doing it informally, but it is also possible to formalize that alignment. It is also possible to organize around operating principles, how to distribute decision-making at these customer interfaces across the network, how to have direct and open communication such that the communication is not being filtered by the sender, it's being filtered by the receiver, and how to maintain an entrepreneurial spirit across the organization as the organization builds. These key things then are really designed around the structural principles and the operating principles that then takes us into how to design an organization that is an adaptive network that is purpose aligned and effectual driven. These are three critical components that need to be designed for so that these principles are actually put into place. Once in place, the organization then is designed to be change driven, or change, I should say, it's designed to be built for change, because it's no longer an afterthought. It is no longer being fought by the control functions that's embedded in the organization itself. So what does this design look like? Okay. First off, it's a network structure that has distributed decision-making, and it is effectual driven, where effectuation is driven over causation. But a critical component is what Reg and I are coming up with as a purpose alignment team. This is a critical part that really holds things together in a formalized way. It creates the tension that is needed to enable the three earlier things to effectively operate. It also does the proactive work that is often only addressed reactively when there is a problem itself. These design components then are what's really the ability to drive the structure and the operations that support the principles that we see or we desire. The four simple design elements then become really an end state of a new way of thinking about organizations, a way of thinking about organizations that are designed for change and not designed for control. And tomorrow, Reg will be picking up here of how to put this into implementation. And as part of that, how to move as a transition through individual design elements and how we can basically morph an organization to get to this type of structure. The key then is going forward with a new way of thinking about organizations.